Hello, Tucker. My name is
Hey.
Joshua, and I'm a really big fan of your show.
Thank you.
With the 2022 Republican primary election happening soon, who do you plan to support, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis?
Well, who am I going to support? Well, Joshua, as you've noticed, my endorsement means a lot to American voters. This is the new me, Joshua. I sorry to digress, but it is relevant. I just interviewed Mike Tyson. And, I had no interest in interviewing Mike Tyson. I didn't know anything about Mike Tyson, I remember him boxing, but that was it. And two really good friends of mine said, well, you don't know Mike Tyson? I was like, how would I know Mike Tyson? I host a show on Fox. Mike Tyson is actually a wonderful person, a totally honest person, really smart, and you should interview him. And so I did. I interviewed Mike Tyson. And my friends were absolutely right. He's one of the most interesting. I'm still thinking about what he said, believe it or not. And it's that's why life is wonderful. You're always surprised. And I was shocked by what a marvelous and good person Mike Tyson was. But one of the things that he said that I've been thinking about ever since, a week and a half ago, I said, you go out in public a lot and you're one of the most famous people in the world, and I'm sure everyone's nice to you, but some people are probably not nice. How do you feel when people criticize you? And he said, because he's extremely sincere, he said, when I feel like I'm somebody, I'm really offended by it. But when I remember I'm nobody, it's okay. And I thought, I need to be more like that. That's exactly right. I mean, let's be honest. Who cares what I think? You know what I mean? I'm not endorsing anybody. I have no idea what's going to happen in the Republican primary. I spend a lot of time in Florida, and I think Ron DeSantis has done an unbelievable job. And I mean that. I don't know DeSantis that well, but let me put it this way. People move to Florida because he's the governor. I've lived in a lot of states. I grew up in California. I've lived in D.C., Rhode Island, Arkansas. I've lived in this country for over 50 years. I know it pretty well. And I've never lived in a state where people just unbidden at dinner are I'm really, really glad we have our governor. What? I've never lived in a place where people knew who the governor was. The governor? Really? Was he here? No, I just love him. But people will literally say that about Ron DeSantis where I live. It's what? So I'm so impressed by that. I'm so grateful that Donald Trump ran in 2016. Donald Trump completely changed my view of everything. Donald Trump is why I left Washington. And he did it in a really simple way by asking questions that no one around him could answer. He showed up and said things like, why don't we have a border? Shut up! Shut up, racist! Or my personal favorite, he's like, what's the point of NATO? And you're like, and I grew up, my dad worked for the government, and I was, had a front row seat to the Cold War. It was being waged in my house. My dad worked for the government fighting the Soviets. So NATO was a great thing because it kept the Soviets from invading Western Europe. But that ended in August of 1991. But I never thought about it again until 2016 when Donald Trump brought it up. Ever. What's the point of NATO? And I thought, that's a great question. What's the answer? And all my neighbors are like, shut up, racist! Shut up! And that's when I realized, oh, wait, I live in a city where nobody can defend what we're doing. And if people can't defend what they're doing, they shouldn't be doing it. It's really simple. If you can't defend what you're doing the wrong thing. If you're doing it in secret, you're doing it for a reason in secret, because you're doing the wrong thing. Secrecy abets evil. And if you have an entire system built on secrecy, where they won't release the Kennedy files after 59 years because they were involved in it, actually. And that's true. It's not speculation. Then you've got a really rotten system. And who I think am pretty observant, I wouldn't have known any of that until Trump showed up. And started asking these kind of autistic simple questions why are we doing it that way? Shut up, racist! And it's exposed the whole thing, and I'm so grateful to have seen that. And I should also add, since why not, I actually love Donald Trump as a guy. And I know Trump. I've known Trump for 20 years because I work in the media, And I just have always gotten along with him. And I think he's one of the funniest people I've ever talked to in my life. I think he's got this unbelievable life force to him. Talking to Trump, especially when it's not an interview, you don't actually want to interview Trump. That's a nightmare because you can't get him to answer any questions. Because it's the Trump train, you can get on or off, but you can't steer it. Yeah, don't ever interview Trump. But talking to Trump is one of the great joys, one of the great animal joys of life, because he exudes this kind of animal joy. And I love that. And I do. And the characterizations of Trump as like this force of evil. It's like, no, that's Liz Cheney. I'm sorry. That's not. Like, what are you even talking about? I mean, I think, and I've said it, I mean, I criticize my own children, and they're not allowed to criticize me. Just kidding. But I think there are plenty of things to criticize about Trump. I mean, he's a human being. But the idea that he's like this personally some monster is like absurd. It's like it's just another lie. They always tell the opposite of the truth. Trump is like totally charming and engaging and fun and interesting. And the last thing I'll say about Trump that I really love is that his insights into people, which are always expressed in this, because I use words for a living, so I notice how people express things. Trump expresses himself in this way that's like completely original. Completely original. But his insights into people are like, they're like unbelievable. Now, I don't think he's that great at hiring, just being honest, to put it mildly. But into other people, like, what do you think of so-and-so? And Trump will sum them up perfectly. World leaders, that's who this person is. It's like, it's truly a gift. So there's so much I like about Trump. And fundamentally, I agree with him, you know, on the big things, on immigration, foreign policy. I strongly agree with him. So, like, you know, thank heaven I don't have to think through how this is going to end. I mean, at this point, it does seem like two, like, forces moving toward one another at high speed. And how can that go well? And the answer is, I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen. There was like a period of a couple weeks where I was like, I'm in the news business. I got to find out how this movie's going to end. And then I realized, especially after the midterms, no idea. It's a cliffhanger. And I'm just happy to report on it day to day. I don't have to have official feelings on it or tell people you should vote for this person or that person. Like, I see a million sides of it, and I think it'll work out a little better than, I know every person in this room is terrified of some horribly destructive primary that hobbles the party and lets, you know, 83-year-old Joe Biden continue to continue to allow Barack Obama to actually run the country. And that is a nightmare scenario. But I don't think it's assured. Last thing I'll say, if you had, again, I've done this since 1991, so you'd think I'd be better at predicting things. But if you had said to me, well, actually, I'll tell you, this is actually a true story. I'm sitting in the car at some point going somewhere in 2015, and Trump calls me. I'll never forget this moment. And he calls me and he goes, you know, I've got an announcement. I think I'm going to kind of surprise you. And I was like, yeah, right. You're running for president. Right, okay. Because I had seen this before in 2000. That's how old I am. He ran for president to sell a book or whatever. And I started laughing. And I'm like, you got another book coming out? And he's like, and he goes, no, actually, I'm serious. I think I'm going to surprise you. And he was so different from, I talked to him a lot. I've never heard him like this. And at this point, he's a media figure. He just works at NBC, where I used to work. Like, he's in the world that I live in. But I don't think of him as like a real presidential candidate. But there was something in his voice that was so different that I actually wrote it down on my little calendar thing on my iPhone. Donald Trump calls and says he's going to run for president. I took it seriously. But the amazing thing is that until that moment, I would have bet my house that would have been impossible. Like, I did not see it coming. At all. I didn't see it coming. And that event completely changed American politics forever, for good and bad. But it changed it forever. That was a transformative event. And I didn't predict it. So we are 2 years out. 2 years minus 1 month out from the presidential election. So I am completely comfortable putting my total ignorance on full and florid display and telling you I have no freaking idea, but I can't wait to see it. Thank you.
So what are you charged with? That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
It looks that way, and it's very interesting because the girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying that we're not victims of anything and this isn't true. But the state believes it's true, and the state thinks that I, as a 35-year-old man, woke up. I was already extremely financially successful. I was already a father. I was already very well known. I had no financial motivation. I have no criminal record. It's not my personality profile, but I woke up at the age of 35 and decided to make girls do TikTok to enrich myself with the pennies that I would earn from TikTok views.
So in the United States, I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
How do you force someone to do TikTok videos?
I guess the prosecutor is going to have to explain that, isn't he? It's a very interesting scenario I'm in, and I'm inside of Romania, so I have to show a degree of respect to the Romanian judicial system. And I have to show a degree of respect to the situation I'm in. But the overall charge is that there's an organized criminal group. There's a group of us. I'm the head of it. My brother is below me. And we use the lover boy method to convince women to do TikTok videos to make money so that we can steal the TikTok money.
So there's no, just to be clear, you are not accused of pandering, of pimping, of forcing women to have sex with anybody.
No, not forcing them to have sex, not restraining their movement, not stopping them from living a full life, but the fact that we are somehow convincing them to have TikTok. Very interesting. I don't think...
But there's no actual... I'm asking you this because I do think it's a widespread belief that you were accused of pimping.
Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with any of this case. Absolutely nothing. And it's kind of scary because the crime in itself of human trafficking is a unique one because they can ignore the statement of the victim. So the girls have come forward and said, this is insane. You've just picked us because we're near Andrew and we're his friends. But the whole idea of the crime is they can say that she's brainwashed, right? She's under duress. So you can ignore her statement. State says she's a victim regardless of the fact that she says she's not a victim. So it's very interesting because the difference between sex and rape is consent, right?
Right.
But they remove all of that. They're like, nope, you're a victim. No matter what you say, we're deciding you're a victim. And they've chosen them. And of course, these girls do nothing pornographic. They've never had sex with anyone, nothing to do with that. So they've picked TikTok. So it's scary. Imagine you're a full-grown man anywhere in the world today. They can find two girls who have TikTok on their phone, which is every single female on the planet, and they can accuse you of forcing them to take the TikTok money. And even if the girls say they didn't do that, this isn't true, then you're still a human trafficker.
But force, what does that consist of? Forcing someone to do something? Are they accusing you of using violence or?
No, they're accusing me, and this is the thing, they're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
And by the way, these charges presumably are public, so...
They're public, and this is extremely serious. But if you actually analyze the overall case against me, they're saying that Andrew and his brother, by being nice men, convinced girls to have TikTok accounts and then take the money. And it's very interesting because inside of the entire case file, there's not a single financial transaction to us for money.
What are the penalties?
They're extremely severe, 5 to 10 years in jail. And I've already served, coming up now, 7 months in a form of jail. They can only
So you are essentially incarcerated right now.
Absolutely, I'm on house arrest. And that counts as jail. You can only be held 6 months without charge. I was initially picked up, thrown in a cell without charge. And I think the intention of the entire investigation at that point was to find the crime because they had very, very weak evidence. They contacted 2,000 people who know me or knew me. They tried very hard to convince some female somewhere to come forward and say something bad about me. The media machine, which works hands in hands with the justice machine, as you know very well, did exactly that. In fact, they offered bribes effectively. They'd call up ex-girlfriends and say, if you have anything bad to say about Andrew, we can pay you $50,000 for the story. And they tried very hard. They didn't find any evidence of anything. They then released me on house arrest. And then 2 days before the legal limit in which they had to drop everything, they charged me with whatever they had from the beginning, which is very little. And now we have to wait for the Romanian judicial system to analyze the file and, God willing, throw it away.
How long did you spend in jail?
I was in jail for 92 days in a Romanian jail cell.
What was that like?
It was certainly an interesting experience. I won't lie and say it was easy. It was certainly very difficult. The uncertainty of it. It's a very uncertain situation to be picked up on just before New Year's Eve and thrown in a cell without charge. And I'm asking different prison guards and different prisoners, how long am I going to be here? One prisoner's like, I've been here 2 years. I was like, have you been charged? He goes, yeah, but I haven't gone to court yet. Like, everyone's been there for years. I thought I was going to be there for years. And it certainly takes a mental toll on you. And I think jail is a different experience when you know you're innocent. There was a guy in there for murder. He's like, yeah, I murdered someone, I'm in jail. You can your soul and your mind can accept the punishment for a crime. But when you've actually done nothing wrong, I think jail is a lot harder.
Did you know why you were there?
Not initially. So for about the first 2 weeks, I never actually got told in English what I was accused of because I was arrested on December 29th. There's New Year's.
What were the circumstances of that?
Yeah, December 29th, 5 a.m., the armed guards ran in this house. They spent all day searching the entire house. They're very interested in electronics, as most federal agencies are. And then they took me that evening and said, we're going to go and put you in jail for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, you see a judge, and the judge will decide if you stay in jail. And the judge decided I should stay in jail.
What did you do? I mean, who'd you call?
I had a lawyer, and my lawyer came and he said, we need to analyze the case file. We need to see what they have against you. You're being accused of human trafficking. I was like, human trafficking? That's insane. Who? When? What? I went to jail, and then I was given all this paper in Romanian. I don't speak Romanian, although I live here. And then I was waiting for the translation. So I think it's about 2 weeks before I finally got the papers in English to understand why I was in a jail cell. And then I really understood how insane the accusations were.
What is human trafficking?
Yeah, so the overall, my understanding of it, they're saying that human trafficking is when you convince a woman to do something she doesn't want to do for financial gain. And there's different methods you can do that. You can do that through force, and you can also do that through emotional coercion.
I think most people, just speaking from the American perspective, most people believe that human trafficking is effectively slavery, selling human beings.
That's what I believe as well. Absolutely. And this is the thing that's so interesting. When you finally end up the enemy of the matrix, and they use the legal system as a weapon to punish you for having an opinion, you realize how subjective the law is, right? Because it can be a weapon. When you have something subjective, you can just pick and choose. So if they sit and say, human trafficking is a woman doing something for financial gain against her will via emotional coercion. Well, he knows these two girls, they have TikTok accounts.
Emotional coercion?
Convincing her. That's what I'm accused of, because they have no proof of me doing anything wrong. So they said, he's convinced these girls to do TikTok for money. The girls have said this is not true, and the state is denying their statement, saying, no, you're brainwashed, it is true. And I went to jail.
So how is the state, so the state is trying to coerce the women, so how is the state not committing human trafficking by the same definition?
Well, absolutely, it's very interesting. It's very interesting that you can sit someone down and tell them they're a victim when they say they're not a victim.
You're a victim of being coerced, and we're going to try to coerce you into conceding you were coerced.
Exactly. It's a very interesting scenario. And
okay.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting scenario. And it's up until this point, no judge has looked at the evidence of the case. So up until this point, I've been to court a bunch of times. But the only reason I was in court was to discuss my preventative detention. So under Romanian law, if you being free can impede the investigation, you should stay in jail. So the judge agreed that, yeah, maybe if he's free, he can damage this investigation because they're trying very hard to get something on this guy. So I've done a bunch of jail time. And now it just begins. The judge is going to look at the case. And like I said, God willing, I still have enough faith in the Romanian judicial system that she's going to look at this and go, this is not a crime.
You're aware of the media coverage of this, however. So you're in jail for 90 days or more, and the rest of the world is talking about you. Do you know what they're saying?
They're saying very heinous things, and I would hate to come across as a conspiracy theorist, Tucker, but I kind of have a feeling that this might be something to do with my influence and an attempt to slander my name. Perhaps I'm crazy. But the fact that they chose such a heinous crime, and they reported it so heavily, and they won't shut up and keep repeating basically a slander attack day after day after day. Also considering the fact that other people who genuinely commit heinous crimes have far more favorable press coverage. I don't want you to think I'm a conspiracy theorist. Please, Tucker, I would hate for you to come here and call me crazy. Yeah. But something very strange about it, and I think
What, when Jeffrey Epstein's friends call you immoral?
Yeah. The goal of it is certainly to slander my name, and I like to see it as a litmus test. I like to see it as an intelligence test. Anybody who wakes up and looks at me and goes, he's a human trafficker because of TikTok. They're fully gone.
So, but from the West, just to defend the average news consumer in the West.
Sure.
Andrew Tate, kind of an outlaw.
Yep.
Lives in some palace in Romania, wherever that is.
Yep.
And Romania sounds like the kind of place where human trafficking is like the main industry.
A lot of it happens here. That's what's so crazy about it, right? What's so crazy is if they really want to find a human trafficker, I think they could probably do it quite easily. But they managed to get me.
That's certainly the perception. But it's one of those charges that kind of sells itself.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't matter if you're found guilty or not, right? You're a human trafficker forever. And but I do think that public consciousness is changing. I think with things like there's been some very large court cases recently involving some very famous people in which women were caught lying, trying to slander men's names for rape and these kinds of things. And I don't think people believe it anymore. But that scares me to a degree because I think that the typical weapon, the standardized playbook is now failing, and I don't know what the new playbook's going to be. It's almost like better the devil you know. You're too famous, you're too successful, we don't like you. Call him a rapist or a human trafficker, put him all over the news, slander his name, try and wreck his life. Now that nobody believes it, what's the next move? What are they going to try next?
Wouldn't it just have been easier to commit like a massive financial crime and defraud people of billions, come up with like a fake cryptocurrency, call it like, I don't know, FTX, or just give a name to it.
Yep, something random.
You know, steal billions and get your parents involved and buy a bunch of real estate in the Bahamas, and then like you'd be sort of a hero, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I would have certainly made a lot more money than TikTok because I don't think TikTok even pays you for views. And if it certainly does, I never got a single transaction from it. So it's a very interesting scenario. But if I was accused of a financial crime, my name would not be slandered. So
of course. Well, of course not. You have the presumption of innocence. So just back to the jail thing. So you're in with your brother.
At the beginning, I was not, but towards the end, I was, yeah.
What did you do all day?
It's a good question. I looked at the wall, stared at the wall, smoked cigarettes, lots of push-ups, read the Quran.
You smoked cigarettes, did push-ups, and read the Quran.
Basically, yes. And certainly had some introspective moments. Tried my best to get out, tried my best to via my small phone calls, understand what's happening in the outside world. Tried to make sure that the people I love and care about are taken care of because I'm the man of my family and I'm also the man of quite a large, I wouldn't say empire, but life. And there's a whole lot of people who rely on me. You know, you have staff and families, you have children and families.
I know the feeling, yeah.
So when you're plucked from that, it's kind of strange. You're in jail and you're concerned for yourself, but your primary concerns are also all your duties as a man. I have duties as a man. I don't want children to starve.
You've got a whole tribe.
I've got people to pay. So it was very, very frustrating, constantly trying to make sure everybody else was okay and feeling helpless. That's what hurt me the most. I was trying to make sure everybody I love and care about was fine, and I wasn't as powerful as I should have been. And that was very upsetting. And especially if they were going to keep me there for years, I was having serious concerns about how I can feed the people I love.
Did you ever come to the edge at all?
No, I certainly had some days I was less happy than others, but I made sure that my mindset was built in a way that I could always be doing something constructive. And also, I think you get what you give in life. And if I ever felt particularly sad on a day, I would try very hard to make other people happy because if I made other people smile, I'd feel better. So even the dinner ladies or the prison guards, I'd try very hard just to make people smile. I know it sounds silly. Some of the prison guards were more open than others, but there was a couple prison guards who were ice cold, who didn't want to say a word to me. And I'm like, hey, bro, your hair looks amazing. And he just stare at me like he wants, shut up. But I just try my best to cheer people up, to cheer myself up. And as a man, all you can do is just find the resolve to continue doing the best you can in the current circumstance. So,
what were the other prisoners like?
I don't want to insult Romania in any way, and I love this country and I chose to live here. But if I had to describe it for the people, for an American audience to understand, I don't think Romania and a lot of these countries have the same kind of mental health setup or the mental health support that a lot of Western nations have. So you end up in jail. Ooh. So I think there was a lot of mental health problems inside the jail. So it was very similar. It wasn't just a jail. There was also a lot of mental health problems in there, which adds a new complexity and a new dimension to the suffering because there's just random screaming and there's suicide and it's certainly not a very nice place to be.
Oh, so it's horrifying.
Yeah, I don't want to go back.
You hear the phrase Romanian prison and it sounds tough, so it was what you would imagine.
It is, and when this process is over, there's a lot more I will say, but I will say the staff were very nice to me, and I want to make this clear. I want to make it very clear that all the staff in the jail were very professional and very nice to me. I would almost say that they believed I was innocent and they understood that I didn't belong there. There was a semi-apologetic vibe to the way I was treated by the guards, if that makes sense.
Yes.
They understood very well. I don't think anybody, like I said, with a functioning brain believes that me at the age of 35 decided to steal TikTok money and ruin my entire life without financial motivation to girls who say they're not victims of anything. I don't think anybody with a brain.
Well, the fact that you're not accused of a sex crime or of violence, which I think most people don't really understand.
Yep.
And they can look it up.
Yep.
I mean, but you're not actually accused of
Correct.
rape,
Correct.
selling anyone,
Correct.
pimping.
Correct.
Okay. That right there raises a lot of questions.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing that's so interesting because I'm accused of using a method of human trafficking called the lover boy method. So how that would traditionally work is a man would meet a girl, become her boyfriend, take her to another country, turn her into a prostitute, say I love you, like pimping.
Of course.
But they're saying, because all my conversations with these girls are very nice, they're saying that I use the Loverboy method to convince them to do TikTok. And once again, I never made a penny from TikTok, and I have no interest in girls' TikTok's accounts, and I've never made any money from TikTok in my life.
So that raises the question. So that right there, I think, I mean, we can let people assess. I'm not, an expert on the Romanian legal code, but that's kind of not the impression that most people have. Okay?
And that's the media, who have made that the media have tried very hard to do that. And if I had to estimate, I think that the overall intention was just to throw me in a cell, use the media machine to drum up something real. I think that's what the goal was.
So, but what's the, and I believe that, it seems, obviously.
Yeah.
One thing, I've never been to Romania before, and one thing I'm struck by is the American presence here.
Oh, it's massive.
Fully understand that. So there are 3 NATO bases here
Yep.
now. They're bustling because of the war in Ukraine.
Yep.
One's on the Black Sea,
Yep.
right below Crimea. So this is strategically important, this country, to NATO.
Absolutely.
And so this is a lot less far away than I realized. It's much more American influence.
Oh, absolutely. I
Do you
think
think that played a role?
Yeah, well, I think, and I don't want to get this incorrect, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd biggest U.S. embassy in the world. The U.S. embassy here looks like a prison. It's huge. They've got a huge embassy here. And even during Ceausescu, during the communism days, Romania was an ally of the West, even during communism.
Yes.
So, yes.
Ceausescu came to New York.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So Romania and America have been very good friends for a very long time. I have to be careful what I say, but it's certainly very interesting what's happened to me. The American embassy were not particularly helpful, let's put it that way. They weren't very interested in me being locked up without charge. They didn't seem very interested in getting me out.
But you're an American citizen.
Absolutely. And
So you're an American passport holder.
correct.
So I think the average American believes, perhaps falsely, that if you are accused of a crime in a foreign country, particularly a less developed country like Romania, you go to the U.S. Embassy and someone takes an interest in your case just to make sure that your treatment falls within, accepted standards of justice.
Yeah, they came to see me, but when I was asking them what they can actually do about all of this, they weren't particularly helpful. I don't want to peddle conspiracy theories, and I've heard a lot of information, etc. But I wouldn't say they sanctioned it. I don't know if they had to sanction it, but they weren't particularly interested in getting me out. But at least they came to see me more than once. I mean, they kind of pretended to care. The UK embassy didn't even pretend to care. The UK embassy was, I really think they enjoyed it. They didn't.
And you're a British subject as well?
Correct. And this is the kind of thing, and I want to say this here, that's kind of frustrating for me because Romania is my home now for 7 years, but I'm half British, half American originally. And when something like this happens to you, you have this longing for home. You kind of want to go home. When you end up in a jail in a country where, even though you've lived for a long time, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the legal system, going to court in a foreign language is far more intimidating than in your own language.
I can't even imagine.
You don't have a clue what's being said. You don't understand how anything works. And then you kind of have this longing for home, but I feel like my home countries hate me, and they hate me because of my message, which I believe to be a positive message. So you kind of have this strange feeling of homelessness, because it's like, well, if I go to the UK, I believe they're going to attack me the same. If I go to America, I believe they're going to attack me the same. So where do you go? It's kind of scary.
Where do you go?
It's a good question. We're going to have to see. And
how did you wind up here?
I moved to Romania. I came to visit a long time ago, before anybody ever visited Romania. I came to visit and I genuinely fell in love with the place. It truly is a fantastic country. I love nature, as an amazing nature. It's a very safe place. It has this reputation of being dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's very safe. The people are very good. The people are very conservative traditionally. It's almost like America was 20, 30 years ago. It's gorgeous. They have a bunch of nice restaurants and plenty of things to do. And I've never had a problem here in any way. Never had any issue with the law or with the other side, criminals, nothing, until this came out of nowhere. So it's been very strange.
So what is it about your message, do you think, that infuriates certain people?
Well, my message is traditional masculinity. My message is to stand up and say what you mean and mean what you say. And even going to the gym nowadays is an act of defiance, because when you have a man who's built with any degree of principle, you say no to things. And I think if I have to analyze my message and why I'm so disliked by the people who dislike me, it's not the things I'm saying, it's the fact that if you adhere to my principles and you adhere to the things I say, you end up being the kind of person who will resist certain ideas. You say no. What kind of man never says no? Name a man who never says no. Men say no, right? Men wake up and say, no, I don't think that should be done this way. No, my children will not be taught that.
It's
no.
the father's primary job.
Absolutely. So when you say to men, listen, you're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have boundaries and barriers. You're allowed to get up and become important and work hard and try hard and become the kind of man who can't be controlled. Then you're seen as an enemy. And I, especially with the massive influence I've gained, I think they look at me and go, he's helping men resist the slave programming. We don't need him around. We need to empty their brains so we can inject the slave programming and convince men to be eunuchs. Because once you're eunuched, then you're not a threat.
Nói chung là ok anh em nha. Nói chung là bây giờ là mình vừa mới hấp xong cái con hai con cua này anh em. Hai con cua này rồi này, đấy. Là cái có vợ mình với hàng Thu này, chứ còn mấy anh em kia giờ bận công việc hết rồi các bạn, không có ai xuống hết. Mình cũng có liên hệ rồi mà do anh em bận công việc đó, cho nên là Chi có vợ mình với Thu với Kit cùng mình tham gia cái clip này nha. Rồi thôi bây giờ vậy, bây giờ anh em mình vào việc luôn đi, tém luôn đi. Rồi tí nữa tôi vào tan sau thử review con cua thử hay Thu. Con Chi rồi này vô đi. Cắt sao là con cua này như tao nghe người ta nói là đập cái mai ra là chuột kìa nóng dữ vậy.
Kiết con ăn con cua nào
chị ơi,
con này trồ chú Thu kìa, chú Thu cắt cho con nè.
Sao ta?
Cắt cái khúc đây xong rồi luồn cái chéo vô cái
dạ. Thu gì mà hồi giờ Thu đâu mấy cua anh em, thằng này đúng là người nghèo đúng rồi này, bây giờ mình biết chắc chắn là Thu là người nghèo rồi anh em. Cái người cua mà nó cũng biết đó.
Nghĩ sao từ ngày cha sinh mẹ đẻ ra giờ mới thấy con cua này mà không nói chi mà ăn.